Hello and welcome to Serbian Mythology channel. Today we will talk about vampires, the original ones. Vampires are probably the most well-known mythical beings, and they are subject of popular culture, movies, literature, and probably in every country, in every mythology, there is a version of a vampire, of a blood-sucking beast. But the vampire, as we know it today, is actually, as we know it in a popular culture, came from Serbia. Even the word vampire is actually just a Serbian word, vampir, read in English. Now, uh, while Bram Stoker depicted vampires as a perfect English gentleman, vampire is far from that, and many things that people are believe they are true about vampires are actually not. So let's see what is true and what is not true about the real vampires. So the first thing is, how can someone become a vampire? Contrary to popular belief, vampirism is not an illness and it cannot be spread by a vampire bite. If vampire bites you, you will probably die, but you will not become a vampire. Vampire, according to folk beliefs, are the souls of people, bad people, usually criminals or thieves, robbers, people who did something bad during their lives, and their souls could not leave their body after death. Also, it's very important to attend the body when people die, so the body will not stay in the dark, because a demon soul can come into the body and make the body a vampire. If the body does not become a vampire in the first 40 days after the death, then the body will not become a vampire, because the 40 days is the period when the soul is lingering on earth and stay close to the body, but after 40 days the soul will finally pass to the afterlife. Now, it is also believed that the body can become a vampire if the person actually can become a vampire if the body was not, the skin was not pierced during the life. Today, that is not a problem because everyone got some sort of injection during their lives, but before that was not the case. So it is a custom that usually older people who help to prepare the body for the funeral take the needle and pierce the skin, poke the skin, usually in the armpit or in the heel, so the body cannot become a vampire. So that is one of the prevention to stop the deceased to become a vampire. Of course, the most important thing is to have a candle lit all the time, from the time of the death till the funeral. Now, what are the vampire's powers? In the popular beliefs, vampires can become a bat, or can turn into a fog, or something like that. But actually, vampire cannot turn into a bat, but it can take a form of a wolf, or it can take a form of an insect, which is interesting. It can pass through the even the smallest hole, like a keyhole. So there is no point of locking the doors and windows, because vampire can enter everywhere. They are extremely intelligent, and they are very, very strong. They have a strength of several adult people. Now, vampires are active during the night, but in a specific period from the midnight until the first roosters, that is around 3 o'clock, announce the dawn. So that is a special time of night when the dark forces are very active. Vampire is dormant during the day. He is in some kind of suspended animation, if I can say it like that, because vampire during the day is not active and he cannot move. So that is usually the day when vampires are killed. Vampires, they are usually attacking their family. They are usually attacking their children, first and foremost, children, close relatives, and they're attacking their wives. Sometimes they come to their wives for sex, and it is believed that the child that is born from the sex with a vampire has special powers, and that child later can become a perfect vampire slayer. Now, vampire actually can pass any obstacle besides bridges and water. So vampires are pretty much confined to the region where they live, and they usually do not change their place of habitation. They're usually lingering around their graves for the most of the time. They do not change their place. Because they do need to return to their very own grave. Also, vampire will never leave without the dead man's cover. It is a custom in Serbia to cover the body when it's put in a coffin, usually a sheet or a blanket, and vampire will never leave without it. If the cover is taken away from the vampire, he will lose all his powers and he has to go back to his grave immediately. Now, to protect yourself from the vampire, there are only two ways to protect yourself from the vampires. The first is garlic. Vampires are not afraid of crosses, contrary to the popular belief. So the first one is garlic. They cannot stand garlic, and they cannot stand the half-thorn. So people usually take the half-thorn branches and put it all around the fences and put it on the doors and windows so vampire cannot come into the house. And that is the only way to protect yourself from the vampire. Now, to discover a vampire, people use a black horse or a dark horse without any spots of other color on its body, and that horse would be brought to the graveyard and he would stepping over the graves, and the horse will not and cannot step over the vampire's grave. So to kill a vampire, there is only one secure way. Actually, there is only one way to kill a vampire. Contrary to popular belief, vampire will not die from the sun exposure. They don't like sun like all demonic beings, but they will not die from it. They are basically not active during the day, but if you expose the vampire's body to the sun, the body will not burn. During the day, vampire is just a corpse. That's it. The second thing, vampire will not die from the wooden stake to the heart. Actually, only the half-torn stake has any effect on vampire. The other kind of wood will not affect vampire at all. Now, a half-torn stake will not kill a vampire. It will just immobilize it so the vampire cannot move anymore. But the only way to actually kill a vampire is to cut his head off and to burn the body. Now, when the vampire's body is found and the stake is staked with a half-torn wood stake, uh, before the head is cut off, it is important to pour some holy water in the vampire's mouth, because the dark soul, vampire's dark soul, will escape in a form of a butterfly. So if the butterfly escapes, then that soul will infect the other corpse, and the other corpse will become a vampire. So it's very important, before the head is cut off, to put to pour the holy water into vampire's mouth, exactly in the moment when the stake is put to his heart. Then the body will be burned, and the ashes would be thrown into the river. So even if some remains are still intact, and by some chance vampire come back to life again, he cannot find his way back. So that would be, in short, about the original vampire. He is a far from a perfect English gentleman. He will attack usually his family, but he will attack anyone and everyone who uh, is out in the improper time of the night. And also vampire will attack domestic animals, usually cows and horses. They are his main victims. So uh, be careful and don't go out at night from midnight till 3 o'clock in the morning.